Like, no matter what you do,
Yep.
there are going to be people that dislike you. It doesn't matter what you do. You could go cure cancer tomorrow and people are going to have a problem with you.
Because you didn't cure something else.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we kind of jokingly, like passive aggressively, like, oh, we've been burnt out for years. But we've been tired for quite some time. But we love this. We love this so much that it's that drive and that passion and that purpose that gets us up every day at 5 a.m. and gets us through our day, even when we're exhausted, or on days we lose a dog, or on days that we feel like we are just drowning and it doesn't matter what we do because we only rescued one dog today, but 50 were dropped off at one shelter. So I think everyone's capacity for stress varies, you know, so you have to kind of figure out how much you can really handle.
Yep. Because understand, as a rescue, you are the end all be all.
Yep.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of Revenge Tour Topic and Q&A.
Yeah.
Well,
Hi.
hey.
Hey, welcome.
What's going on, guys? So topic for today, Steph's going to pick it. What you got?
I got, what are the biggest challenges that rescues are facing today? Whether it's, you know, just a general overview of challenges, but then we can kind of dive into what we find the most challenging in dog rescue, or on a personal level.
Personal level.
Personal.
Yes. Also, really quick, because we saved this for the end, please, right now, like the video.
Yes.
And subscribe. Help us out. Do it first, then enjoy the video.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, wait. Okay.
Go for it.
I'm kicking it off. Okay.
Yeah, that's
well, you know, I think depending on where you're at in your rescue journey, if you just started your rescue, if you're, you know, years into your rescue, or your tail end of rescue.
So let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
When you first started the rescue, what was the most frustrating part about it, or the biggest challenge, biggest hurdle?
I think the biggest hurdle when
first
started was the fundraising portion of it, because of the dogs that I enjoyed taking on. You know, it wasn't just cute puppies.
Yeah.
So I was taking on already, you know, extreme medical cases. And so funding, when you're new and getting people to trust you to send their money to you, that was difficult.
Taking on medical dogs when you don't have an established reputation, for sure.
Not the smartest idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, luckily, I did grow up in Southern California. I had a lot of people that I knew in different industries. So I think people took pity on me because, you know,
pity donations.
Yeah, I got pity donations. I'll take it. I'll take your pity donations. But, you know, I had a lot of friends in different industries, and I think that helped me definitely. But yeah, no, funding for sure. The first year or two was probably the most stressful part. And then I think secondly, that we can all agree on, is finding reliable.
That's never ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's every rescue, never ending, no matter how long you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this though. I won't name the person, won't name the rescue, because it was a conversation we were having today. But they said that they just fostered this dog from this rescue, and it was part of a like a large group of dogs that came in. But it's a breed specific rescue.
Okay.
And it's purebred dogs. And they went to the pickup location, and I haven't even told you the story yet, but they went to the pickup location to pick up the dog that they signed up to foster. And
I already know who this is.
She said that there was a line of people waiting to foster and adopt, and the dogs were just getting off of the bus.
Yep. Yeah.
So it was a huge case with all these purebred, same breed dog. And this rescue was taking on dogs from different places as well. And, you know, it was this big plea for fosters. And there was literally, she said, a line there to pick up the foster dogs. I'm like, well, you know, again, look. I feel like we can take this a very like negative route, or let's try to keep it a little positive.
Well, I can keep it positive because I think it was my biggest hurdle year one.
Yeah.
In the rescues, you have to come to terms with reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we choose to take in the dogs we do.
Right.
We choose to do this.
Right.
We put ourselves in this situation. We choose to personally foster 30 to 40 dogs. We're choosing to do this.
Yeah.
And I think we see it a lot with rescues that burn out really quick and get frustrated really quick and lash out really quick, which does not help you as a rescue.
Right.
Where you'll see a rescue, publicly post a screenshot of their notes or something like, why is nobody helping? Why is nobody doing this? Why is nobody doing that? It's a bad look.
Like, oh, people are constantly asking for help, but no one steps in.
You have to understand you're choosing to do this.
No one's twisting your arm to be a nonprofit, animal rescue.
And it doesn't matter what anybody says. You have to come to terms with the reality that the world, including the majority of people in the rescue community, people that rescue their dogs, prefer puppies and breed-specific purebred dogs. That is the reality of it. We've seen it before too. I mean, look, and this is not anecdotal. This is factual. We had which 99% of the time, our dogs are from the shelter. Right. We very rarely do owner surrenders. Yeah. We had an owner surrender that we took in. It was probably one of two for the whole year, but it was a Doberman. What do you call him? An English Doberman?
He was a European
Doberman.
Doberman.
So
still
like
very young.
Beautiful.
He had his ear
purebred.
just cropped, his tail docked.
Yeah, family reached out and they had a friend that was a big supporter of the rescue or something like that. But we had probably, I don't even, how many applications do you think immediately?
Well, immediately it was like 30, but let me backtrack a little bit. The reason we took on this dog, because it's not just like, oh, a big supporter of the rescue reached out. This dog had like serious medical issues and this family had gone down the rabbit hole of thousands of dollars and they're like, we cannot spend any more money. Right. So then we went down the rabbit hole of medical things with this dog and we were able to help him. And then, he ended up getting adopted. But
my point being, we have dogs in our care for 2 years that don't have 5 applications.
Right.
We've never, outside of puppies, had dogs that get 30 applications. But part of the thing with the 30 applications, they were all from social media. It wasn't Pet Finder.
Right.
These were people that were following us already.
Right.
And we had opened up 5 or 6 and recognized the names with DMs. And it was a horde of people that for months, one day when I'm in a position to adopt or when I'm in a position to foster for you guys, I'm going to do it. There were 2 people that actually lived within like 10 minutes of where we were at the time. And same thing, it was like previous messages of, I wish I could help with this poor senior. And then literally all of a sudden they want to adopt this purebred Doberman. And again, I'm not bitter about it because I understand that is the majority of people, including the people in rescue. That's the reality that all rescues know. They just don't want to say it.
Right.
And it is what it is. As long as you're good to your dog,
right.
We've said it before, I really don't care.
Right.
If you are good to your dog from the moment they enter your life until the moment they leave,
right.
That's enough for me. But the reality is just that. People prefer puppies and breed-specific purebred dogs, the majority of people.
Yeah.
So as a rescue, you have to come to terms with that. And you have to understand that when you are not a breed-specific rescue, when you are taking in seniors and overbred mamas and medical dogs, and, again, we also aren't a dog-friendly only rescue. We rescue dogs that are dog aggressive, reactive, leash reactive. We work through stuff like that. We're choosing to do that. So being bitter about it doesn't make sense. You can't really validate that. So I think that's a big struggle rescues struggle with early on.
Right. Just as an example, I posted a video of us going to the shelter on my personal page yesterday. And, all of the dogs that were in that video, there was probably 5 comments, but like 10 to 15 DMs asking what shelter that was because they really wanted to go pick up the pug.
And that was the only dog that was reached out about. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the only dog that anyone commented on. Naya, our friend, sent us a message regarding the male Pyrenees, but that, that's for another time. But, it's, I think it is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of rescues where they're like, their heart's in the right place. They're like, we want to rescue some difficult dogs, and then realize really quickly, hey, I have this really great, blue nose pitty, but it's getting 0 applications. Yeah. And then they pick up a small scruffy terrier and it has 20 applications, even though
the terrier has behavioral notes.
Probably. Yeah. Well, another rescuer posted, I think it was yesterday, she found 2 stray dogs on the side of the road. And one of them was a cute, fluffy terrier. And the other one looked like a shepherd husky mix. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I'm just reaching out to see if there's any rescues that can help. And she was disgusted by the end of the day because every rescue that she reached out to said, yeah, we'll take the small one, but we're not taking that Shepherd Husky mix.
Yeah.
And she said no to all of them and then found a rescue that will take both.
Good.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's the reality though. So I think early on, rescues will learn that.
Yeah,
know?
Hopefully, or you're going to get a bad reputation because you're constantly complaining and lashing out. Yeah. And look, the reality is you're not, and we've said this before, you're not entitled to anyone's time, money.
Yeah.
Like you're not entitled to them fostering, stepping up. It's, you're choosing to do this at the end of the day. So that's a hard lesson for a lot of rescues to learn.
Yeah. You
assume because you're taking in these dogs that, people can get attached to dogs like Anakin with behavioral. Shadow has behavioral.
Yeah.
Simba, Lola, not so much behavioral, but requires proper intros and a lot of work.
Right.
People are allowed to get attached and root for those dogs and not want to personally take on the responsibility of bringing them in their home. That's okay.
Right.
So I think that's hard for rescues to process. Not everyone is like us, is like you in rescue.
Right.
There are people that really want to see these dogs do good, but either understand that they're not in a position to take that on, or they just don't want to because they prefer cute, fluffy puppies.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think also people are allowed to like what they like.
Yeah.
It's all about being responsible in the way that you acquire your animal. And that's, another rabbit hole.
Well, that's a different,
that we can go down, but it's about doing your research and being responsible about the way you acquire your animal.
Yeah. And
not just,
going on Craigslist.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, different rabbit hole, but yes.
Yes.
So, coming to terms with that reality of it, I think is one of the biggest hurdles early on. If you're trying to succeed as a rescue, it's also learning how to act appropriately on social media.
Yeah.
Because, I can't stand it when people say business, because rescue's not a business.
But you got to treat it
like you have to treat it like a business. So, if you have a random person on your post that's just outlandish, and getting people riled up or whatever, block them and move on.
Yeah.
Or like Steph does, kill them with kindness.
Oh, it's my favorite.
Because as a rescue, you should be treating it like a business.
Right.
If you jump in and throw slander and just attack this person and look like a 13-year-old kid, that reflects poorly on you.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt your rescue.
Yeah.
So learn how to act appropriately like a business on social media and how you address people.
And that doesn't mean that you're fake. It just means, you are learning to communicate in a way where you're going to get the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
Which is, my outcome is always, look, I'm going to try to educate this person. Mm-hmm. If this person is still being negative and just causing issues, then like Duke said, you block and you move on.
Well, and
go ahead.
I'll say that's just treating it as a business. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a handful of times you'll see that I'll leave a smart comment. If somebody sets them up for a perfect one-liner, and as a business, I'm like, this response is going to get a positive reaction from the people that support our rescue, right, and it's going to boost this post. Like with Lola being a quick example, there was somebody that was furious we used rap music for her teeth chatters. Oh, God. The Busta Rhymes, lip singing.
Yeah, Karen.
And I was like, perfect. And I literally put up a post the next day of her comment and then Lola's response, rap video at her, her diss track. And stuff like that, it's different, I guess, than just getting in a shouting match with somebody and going back and forth for an hour. And it's a waste of your time. Hopefully you don't have that much time as a rescue, but it's okay to capitalize on quick, one-liners if it takes 10 minutes, but overall be as professional as you can. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that kind of is going to piggyback off of the next challenging thing, I think, is the social media trolls. And you're going to get that regardless. Yeah. If you're on social media and you are posting, part of your life, anything, the only time that I feel like you and I have to take a breather and take a step back is when we just lose a dog and someone has a comment about how we should have tried some silver cream or should have done CBD oil on a dog. That's
or some mushroom blend would have cured their 15-pound mass. Yeah. Right.
And that's when Duke and I do have to take a breather and be like, look,
you'll notice
it's not worth it. It's not worth getting super worked up.
Well, we have a system. You'll notice because we do make a point to respond to people. As busy as our days are. It could be midnight where we finally wrapped up. It's like, okay, these last 5 minutes, respond to people because it matters. Absolutely. Respond in your community. And we also care about our community. Like, it's a very select group of people that follow us.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be a little bit sick in the head to, love these medical dogs and overbred mamas and seniors. Like, you're a special kind of crazy like us.
Left comment is, every time I open up Instagram, I cry.
Yeah.
Like, oh God.
So, I mean, we care about our community too, because we've built it up with people like us, and it's rare. But, we have a system on days we lose dogs, we don't respond. That's the one day I can't.
Yeah.
Because there are always one or two people that have their magic, CBD or whatever. And I'll leave it alone. And it's not worth even getting into because I'm too emotional at that point to have a conversation or ignore. So you have to kind of learn what those times are.
Right.
And then I learned the biggest lesson early on when I started promoting my page. And it was really easy for me. It might be easier said than done for some people.
Yeah.
But when my page started to grow, and I remember I was trying to engage with people, right? I remember I had, an hour or something at the end of the day where I was going through comments, or we were on a transport. And I remember, on your stories, you can see the top 5-10 people that view your story constantly.
Yeah.
So I realized in DMs that I hadn't interacted with the top 5 people. I was like, like that's kind of weird. So I went to the story. Sure enough, they're still there. So these are the people that are on my stories immediately. Top 5, followers.
Right.
So I click, and then I click message because I'm like, I should probably engage. 4 out of the 5 people hated me.
Well, I mean,
vicious comments.
Yeah, you've heard the saying.
Literally nothing but absolutely trashing me.
Your haters watch you the closest.
Yeah. And in my head, it was like, wow, that's really sad.
Yeah.
So I didn't engage. I didn't do anything. I didn't block them, restrict them. I was just like, it was like, okay. Like, no matter what you do, there are going to be people that dislike you. It doesn't matter what you do. You could go cure cancer tomorrow and people are going to have a problem with you.
Because you didn't cure something else.
Yeah. I mean, we've had dogs, like severely shut down dogs, Biddy, where, there was a reel about her finding her family, being rehabilitated. It was her adoption reel. And there was, a comment, how could you use a rope or a slip lead or like this and this? Like, there's always going to be someone that has a negative something to say. So for me, that was kind of a light bulb, like, oh, okay, we just ignore, trolls on social media. And, it's kind of sad, like the top 4 out of the 5 people are spending the most time watching.
Hate you.
That to me was sad, but also kind of funny. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to waste my time like you are. So for me, that's an easier lesson. For others, it might be more difficult to learn, but it's definitely a hurdle.
Yeah. No, I think it's challenging, especially if you're not on social media maybe often and you started posting on social media because of rescue or because of your business that you're launching. And then all of a sudden you have these people that want to insert themselves and have their...
Well, and also remember, and we have a larger audience, but it's looking at the whole. It's like 98% of your feedback is awesome.
Right.
And unless you are going to engage with 100% of that 98%, you should not be wasting time on the 2%.
Absolutely. Well, just
focus on the positive. It does, because you're ignoring the people that are supporting you to engage with the 2 people that are being jerk offs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
So that's a hurdle. Fosters, endless hurdle. We don't have the answer to that. Fosters are hard. And I wouldn't say expect a lot from our fosters, but I think it scares people off because we are so structure oriented.
Right.
Like, we have our phone call, we have our meet and greet, we do our temperament assessment, dog intro to make sure it's a good fit. We set up the crate, provide all supplies, medicals covered. Like, we do all of this, but we have a foster agreement.
Right.
Dogs have to be separated for a few days. We're doing pack walks. We're sharing space. We're making sure the dynamic's good. It
makes people nervous.
And it makes people nervous. We see it all the time where people will foster through a shelter because the shelter throws you the dog. You could bring it back anytime.
Says good luck.
And there's no rules. They're like, good luck, do your thing. And people like that.
Yeah.
But we understand that, again. So it's not something I'm really bitter about anymore.
No.
Some people don't want, the trade-off isn't enough. We provide all the supplies. You have a medically cleared dog, a temperament assessed dog. You have access to our trainers and all of this, but it's still like, but I just want to do my own thing. And I prefer that. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think too,
the downside, I will say, it does bother me when people that do that then reach out to us
Yes.
Because now they want help after things have gone wrong, and the shelter is going to put the dog down, because that does happen where behavioral something comes up in the home. They're like, well, the shelter said they're going to put him down if I bring him back. Can you guys, like, no, you knew who we were.
Yeah.
You chose to go through the shelter. Like, this is on you. So don't use us as like a backdrop or a backboard. You know what I mean? That does bother me.
Well, no, we had someone reach out. We've had a few people reach out. Sorry, not one person. A few people reach out regarding a dog that they took out of the shelter, or a dog that they've had with another rescue that's not providing medical.
That makes me nuts.
Yeah, where it's like, hey, I'm fostering with this rescue, or I'm fostering through the shelter, and this is what's wrong with the dog, and they don't want to proceed with medical. And I'm like, you got to talk to the shelter. Like, you got to talk to don't reach out to us to talk crap about another rescue. Don't do it. Yeah. Like that's A, we don't have time for it. And B, you should be having this discussion with the rescue that you are fostering.
I mean, we've also put up, again, because if you knew who we were, we've talked about red flags for rescues a lot.
Yeah.
If you're getting a dog that isn't medically cleared, or where they're not providing medical, or it's right out of the shelter, we've already told you, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you still chose to go through them because it was probably an easier process and less rules. So again, just not using us as a safety net, a backboard, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, because I think those are really the biggest challenges. Can you think of anything else?
I mean, the burnout. People,
it's not even that's just the reality of it, except burnout.
Well, I think,
speaking for us specifically,
right? I think every person is different with the capacity of which they can work under pressure. Mm-hmm. I think every person is very different with, sleepless nights and constant losses and being stressed financially. Like, people handle that kind of stuff differently.
Yeah.
People internalize, people, whatever. So what Duke's and I's capacity is for working under pressure and working under burnout mode is very high.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been built up.
Yeah. Burnout for us, like, yeah, we kind of jokingly, like, passive aggressively, like, oh, we've been burnt out for years, but we've been tired for quite some time. Mm-hmm. But we love this. Mm-hmm. We love this so much that it's that drive and that passion and that purpose that gets us up every day at 5 a.m. and mm-hmm. gets us through our day, even when we're exhausted, or on days we lose a dog, or on days that we feel like we are just drowning and it doesn't matter what we do because we only rescued one dog today, but 50 were dropped off at mm-hmm. one shelter. So I think everyone's capacity for stress varies, mm-hmm. So you have to kind of figure out how much you can really handle.
Yep. Because understand, as a rescue, you are the end all be all.
Yep.
That's why we personally foster 99% of our own dogs. I mean, we also only have like 4 fosters, but it's because you're the end all be all. I would never pull a dog and rely solely on a foster. I assume all of our fosters are going to call tomorrow and say, hey, the dog has to come back.
Yeah.
So, understanding your capacity for stress, but also what you can handle. Because if you're a rescue that is only foster based and you don't have money in the bank for boarding or board and train,
right,
and you have 40 dogs in foster homes and you can't physically foster them, you're screwed. You've already messed up.
Well, I mean,
that's my honest opinion. You have to be ready for dogs to come back, because we've seen it where you have rescues that bail on their dogs because it's like, oh, well, my foster bailed. What am I supposed to do? They have to go back to shelter. Like, no, that's on you.
Yeah. A month ago, where, kids are getting out of school, mm-hmm. families are now, planning their summer trips. And she literally had 6 or 7 families reach out in the same week that were fostering dogs for her and say, hey, by the way, we're going to be going away at the end of July or the first week of August for such and such days.
Literally, families are entitled to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're fosters, not a rescue.
So all 6 or 7 dogs mm-hmm. literally overlapped within a 2-week period.
Yes.
And she's like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, well, you have to find temp fosters.
You're going to nut up.
Yeah. Some are probably going to come to your house.
Yeah.
If you could avoid boarding during that time,
Yeah.
avoid it, because it costs rescues so much money to board animals, and it's stressful for the animals. Some of these dogs have come from shelter environments. You're basically putting them back in a shelter-like environment.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's, they all gave her the 30-day notice, which is what we use as well in our foster contracts. Like, hey, we understand y'all have your lives. Just give us a 30 days heads up that you're going to go away for 2 weeks so that way we can figure stuff out on our end. But
well, that's fine. I don't mind foster. We have fosters that gives us 30, 60 day heads up. It's like, cool.
Yep.
Because that's the trade-off, right? You're not running a rescue. When you run a rescue, you're not entitled to your life. You lose that. When you're a foster, yeah, it's okay. Like, hey, I have summer plans. I have this, I have a birthday, whatever it may be. So as a rescue, I guess the hurdle is understand that you are the end all be all.
Right.
And when you choose to run a rescue, it is all encompassing. And it is going to be your life.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that it? Cool. Ready for questions?
Yeah. So. Yeah.
All right. We got some questions.
Those are I think the top, what did I give you guys? Top 3 or 4 challenges that I think most rescues can agree on.
Yes. I think most rescues could agree on. And I think it's the thing that trips the most rescues up early on.
Yeah.
The only one I'd add, we hammer this in a lot though, is understand that people are not above suing nonprofits.
Yes.
Get a contracts in place, foster adoption contracts in place, have rules and guidelines. And if you can't afford to have an attorney on retainer, definitely have them write up your contract. Like you can use LegalZoom and some other sites to at least make sure things are airtight to start. Because yes, I mean, people will sue nonprofits. We've seen nonprofits go under for accidents that have happened when dogs were with fosters or adopters because they didn't have things in place. They didn't have rules and guidelines in place.
Because remember, the dog legally belongs to the rescue.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, that a dog is in a foster home and the foster accidentally left the gate open and the dog ran out and bit the UPS driver.
Yep.
The dog legally belongs to you.
Yes. So make sure you work with an attorney and get those things in place. So understanding, I guess, that people are not above suing nonprofits.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Q&A time.
Q&A time. And this one, we'll start with the long Q&A. The rest are kind of rapid fires, just because this is a good one. Okay. Were charges pressed against Shadow's former family?
No, they were not pressed. I reached out to Dallas Animal Services, and then there's a third, like an outside agency that handles actually animal cruelty charges.
Yeah.
And because Shadow was an owner surrender, they see it as the owner asking for help. So if they would have seized Shadow from the home, there could have been a case there for
probably not
animal cruelty.
Yeah.
Also, he didn't have extensive injuries to his body. Yes, he was matted. He was emaciated. He had a few scars here and there, but nothing that was like life-threatening. So
I'll play devil's advocate so we can keep this interesting, and so you guys can see the shelter's viewpoint and understand. I don't agree with this.
Right.
I've been adamant about this, but I want to explain
why they do.
Why in 6 years and over 600 dogs, you guys have seen the types of dogs we take on. I can count on one hand how many times charges have been pressed against owners.
Yep.
So the shelter's viewpoint, if I were to argue here with Steph, is that if we press charges against Shadow's family, who surrendered him, the next family is not going to bring their dog in. They're going to dump him on the street or worse.
Right.
That is how the shelter views it. I understand it's like you're treating grown-ass adults. You are like children. And I understand at some point you have to make an example out of someone.
Right.
I understand. I'm playing devil's advocate. That is their viewpoint and stance on it, which to an extent I understand. Right. The other side of it is that, from a funding standpoint, it is incredibly difficult to prove animal abuse unless it is seen and caught in the act.
Yep.
So what we've been told basically is unless somebody has video or an animal control officer, cruelty officer, sees someone beating their dog in person, they then take that dog in. The dog is examined by the shelter medical staff, and they could prove that what the officer saw led to this damage.
Right.
And it is iron tight. They're not going to move forward because it's very easy for, let's say, Shadow's family or some of the worst we've taken in, even if they're found as a stray.
Right. And it's microchip.
And they show up to the family and they're like, your dog's got a broken leg and a laceration.
Right.
looks like this and this. They're severely matted. They've been terribly cared for. They could sit there and be like, oh, I haven't seen that dog in 3 years.
Right.
And how are they supposed to prove that? Like, you guys have to understand, they don't have divisions that are going to run full investigations into this.
Right.
That's not how it works. There are no investigations. It's a home check and what they see right then and there. So it's very easy for people to say, oh, the dog got out.
Right. So, I mean, you know, from an advice standpoint here, if you are seeing animal neglect or abuse,
document it out of it.
Please document it. Call animal control. Document it when you call.
Video timestamps.
Yeah. Don't get yourself in trouble, over a fence trying to film stuff.
Yeah.
But the more you call and they can document proof that there were concerned citizens or neighbors about the well-being of this animal, the more, animal services or animal control officers will have as, evidence to prove to whoever they need to prove to, like, hey, this person does need to be fined or serve jail time or whatever, the judge decides on. But that's the biggest thing, is document everything and do not be afraid to speak up.
I guess in conclusion, I'll just say, obviously, I don't agree with the way things are done. We need a complete overhaul of the system.
Yeah.
And that's without even getting into the fact that if they do move forward with charges and they do investigate, one of the biggest problems is dogs are then put into quarantine for the duration of these investigations.
Yeah.
So you could have dogs sit in a cell, let's call it what it is, in isolation
for months,
not being handled or touched for 5, 6, 7 months.
Yep.
And by the time the court hearings and everything's wrapped up, that dog is almost beyond saving because they are so under socialized and scared and shut down.
Right.
So the whole system is an absolute disaster. I don't like it. Just trying to explain why it's so incredibly hard to get anything done from an animal cruelty standpoint.
Right.
Coolest experience as a rescue.
I mean, hands down, I think it was the Rangers.
Same one.
Yeah, the Rangers photo shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was yeah. I mean,
because I'm a massive baseball fan.
Right.
But also just that was so outside of the box and reaching such a different audience.
Right. It's not about, I mean, for me, it wasn't like, oh, the players, celebrity.
All the people that are going to see these dogs. Yeah. And it's a chance to educate people that are totally removed from dog rescue.
Yeah.
It was just like, that's such a cool thing. Even on the Instagram post they put up, there were so many people that were so confused with the players with their dogs. Like, what's wrong with so-and-so's dog? And we would answer like, oh my gosh, how does that happen?
Oh my God, he was tied to a tree. Like, they felt awful. One of the people that commented, they were commenting on Jameson.
Oh, they're like, what's wrong with Adoli? One of the players' names, Adolis is his dog. Like, what's the heck happened to his dog?
And then we went in and we commented.
I explained the situation.
He was tied to a tree. He actually has seizures. And they just did a whole 180. I'm so sorry. Oh, we feel awful. So,
Well, people don't realize how bad it is that are removed from rescue. So getting the chance to reach that demographic was really cool. Where do you see yourselves in 10 years?
On 500 acres.
I thought it was 400. Now it's 500.
Now we need 500. Probably still doing this, just in a different capacity. Somewhere, what did we decide on? Montana?
I don't know. We have our fairy tale dream, right? Like, we'd like to have multiple facilities, properties built out.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal, I'd actually love to have a big piece of property where we could allow rescues that we trust to come in.
Yeah.
And operate. If we had a massive piece of property and we had 10 rescues that we really love and are following kind of the same guidelines, let them have their space, like everyone gets 10 acres.
Yeah.
And they operate and do their thing. And it's one giant sanctuary. But
building a little compound.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, though, Steph and I, and that's why I mentioned bringing on other rescues. We don't want to grow to the point we have employees.
Yeah.
And staff. It's, I think things get really complicated and messy when it's a full-blown operation business like that.
Yeah.
And we want to rescue as many dogs as we can, but quality matters. And I think when you get to that point and it's 1,000 dogs a month or something, I mean, I don't know how you keep up with the dogs and how you vet everyone. And I don't know that I could think of anyone that I trust enough to do that whole process.
Yeah.
Which would worry me. So probably doing the same thing, just from a facility standpoint, maybe in a different space, and hopefully doing more spay and neuter clinics,
Yeah, the outreach
touring with the dogs. So a lot of you guys can meet these dogs in person and sharing their stories.
Yeah.
Revenge tour taken off. But yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we have anything crazy that we want to.
No.
Just keep on doing this.
Yeah.
Be healthy enough to keep on doing this.
I was going to say, if we're alive in 10 years, it's still moving.
If we're awake.
What's the number one reason dogs are surrendered? Yeah, that's
I don't
tough.
know. Well, I mean, I have one. I just don't know how true it is. But the number one excuse written down is housing. I'm moving and I can't take this dog with me.
Which I think is a problem, but people have taken it and run with it.
Yeah,
and everyone uses it as an excuse now.
People don't want to be judged when they're surrendering a dog.
Yeah.
I think some people don't give a crap. Like you can see it. They're dropping a dog off. They don't care. There's no emotion. They're handing a dog over or they're dragging the dog in because we've seen it. But then there are people who like, maybe cared for the dog at one point or another, but are just tired of the dog or whatever their excuse is. But they don't want to be judged. They don't want to tell people at the front desk, like, yeah, this dog's just really loud or has a lot of energy and I just don't want to take it out on walks or runs, or it's, dog reactive and I don't want to deal with it or pay for training. And so their number one written down excuse is, oh, I'm moving to a place that doesn't allow dogs.
Yeah. Which we've inserted ourselves early on in a rescue too.
Yeah.
And the owners never once reached out for help. So that also makes me think it's not the reality of it.
Yeah.
And there are some other outreach programs. And also we see it every single day on rehoming pages where it's like, well, yeah, we officially leave tomorrow. And I have to find a home for my dog by tomorrow morning, or I have to drop him off at the shelter. It breaks my heart. It's like you've been planning, you went through this move, you packed up your house, you bought a new place, visited the place, and 24 hours out, you're like, oh shoot, my dog.
Oops.
Clearly you didn't give a about the dog. That was your last,
So there's this,
you didn't think this through.
This person that lives in our, I don't know what you call it, a community. Neighborhood, who has 2 cattle dogs that are constantly out. And it's in an intersection and they're constantly out, these dogs. And someone posted on the neighborhood Facebook page the other day, they were like, oh, these dogs are out again. And someone said, oh, those 2 dogs belonged at the house on the corner, the yellow house. And we had actually picked up a Great Pyrenees from there, off the side of the road a few months ago that had a fractured shoulder and it had already fused. So the dog was injured months prior. So those people have been living in that house for years. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure this was the 3rd time I've seen them on that neighborhood Facebook page about these 2 young cattle dogs in the middle of the road. And then I'm scrolling on just Facebook and our local shelter, which is they have 20 kennels. It's one city over, posted 2 cattle dogs. And it was the same names as the dogs that were on our Facebook page. Reason for dropping off dogs: moving, cannot take with. Mm-hmm. No, you dropped off the dogs at the shelter because everyone was just annoyed with the fact that you couldn't keep your dogs on your property and they were constantly in a intersection, it's a 4-way stop. Mm-hmm. And people were constantly pulling over, trying to get the dogs off the side of the road. So they probably just got sick of the neighbors constantly,
calling and people coming by.
Yeah. And they just said, okay, well, it's just the go-to excuse, I guess.
The other side of that, just because it's a fun one, what's the number one reason we have trial runs fail? Because we've only had 3 or 4 returns in 6 years of rescue. Mm-hmm. So trial runs, because I think people can take something away from that. So what's the number one reason we have trial runs fail? Would you say?
Did you have something off the top of your head? Because you asked that like you did.
Yeah.
Oh,
I do for sure. It's letting the dogs run the home early on.
Oh, not
because there are times where it's a straight up trial run, which is why we do these where it's it's really not a good dynamic. I didn't bond with the dog. My resident dog and them haven't really clicked after 10, 14 days.
Right. And just to give you guys an idea, a trial run is what we do prior to signing adoption paperwork. So you fill out the application, we phone call, we do a meet and greet. After the meet and greet, you basically take the dog home. We drop the dog off, take the dog home for 7 to 10 days if you're local, 30 days if you're out of state. And we see if this is a good fit for you, your family, the dog, the other resident dogs. So go ahead.
Yeah. There are honest reasons where trial runs don't work,
right?
Which is okay. That's why we do the trial run. But the biggest reason for sure is people letting dogs run the home.
Yep.
So we're very structure oriented. And obviously most of the dogs we've taken in have been through a lot.
Right.
but we really, really hammer this in. You know, yes, you want to see if this dog adapts to everyday life, but during these 7 to 10 days, there are rules and guidelines that are followed just in case things don't work out.
Right.
Because the dog has to come back to us. You know, the one of the biggest ones is crate training. If you let the dog sleep in bed with you the first week and it doesn't work out and they come back to us, they're going to be like, screw you, dude. I've been in bed all week.
Right.
And then we're starting over from scratch. The other side of having rules and guidelines in place early, though, is understanding that this dog has had this structure while they've been in our care for 4, 5, 6+ months. If they go into your home and all of a sudden, you know, they're not getting their obedience work in, they're out with a family and getting family time 16 hours a day instead of having a scheduled 16 hours a day, which isn't the extreme you have to go to, but there's little things we recommend implementing. You know, setting boundaries, little daily disciplines, walks, eating in their crate, sleeping in their crate at night, just keeping some form of routine. Families see this sad dog they've connected with, and it's like, oh, I'm going to give them the world. And the dog comes in the house. The dog's allowed on the couch. The dog's allowed to eat human food. The dog's in bed. The dog's not being corrected. You know, when they're shredding stuff inside the house or playing too rough with the resident dog, people let the dog run the home. And then 4 days in, we get a text, this dog's out of control. I don't know what to do. I tried to do this. And it's like, well, what happened the first 3 days? Well, I didn't do any of it. They were actually whining and I felt bad and they were just so cute. So it's like all of a sudden 4 days in, you realize things are out of control and now you're upset and don't want to continue with the trial run, or you're wondering why the things we gave you from day one are more difficult.
Right.
And that to me is extremely frustrating. Yeah. But it is the number one reason trial runs for us fail, is because people cave really early in. Yeah. And we use the analogy a lot. If you're raising a kid and you have a 17-year-old daughter, and you've never once given them structure, routine, they've never had chores, they've never had a curfew, and at 17 years old, you tell them one day, hey, I need you home at 8 p.m. and I need your bed done and room made, whatever, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Right. And that's what you're doing when you bring a new dog into your home and you let them run the world for, you know, in a teenage girl, like 17 years. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, do your thing. Right. That's not how it works. Yeah. So for me, that's the number one reason we have trial runs fail, at least.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for sure. How do you guys win over the behavioral dogs you take in? Ugh. That's so dependent on the dog. As a whole, it's time and patience, sharing space.
And removing, sorry, I'm just going to add one thing before you start. Removing emotion out of it. So it's not about us, like, oh, every dog likes us. Like, no. Just forget about that. This is about the dog decompressing. It's not about your ego. It's about letting the dog do its thing at its own pace. Yep. Obviously with us giving it structure, but like, you know, not being pushy.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, not making it about yourself.
Right.
I think, and again, it's very dependent on the dog, but as a whole, letting the dog work at their own pace, not making it about yourself. And what I mean by that is we see it all the time where, you know, you take in a dog from a shelter and you feel entitled to their love. It's like, I saved your life. You're behavioral and nobody wanted to help you and I helped you, so you have to love me. And then your feelings get hurt when you realize that there's work to be done. This dog doesn't trust you yet. It's not about you. Right. So you have to understand, we've had multiple dogs in the rescue that, I mean, have come at us. We've had dogs that have been in really bad shape, and also behavioral dogs that are giving us teeth. Anakin attacking Steph through the crate there. And we work through it. You have to understand it's not personal to an extent. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
everybody, what happened to you that you feel the need to protect your space like that? It's like, all right, we'll figure it out.
Right. It's making it about the dog, which is how it should be. Right. But yeah, I would just say it's patience, time. Sharing space is wildly underestimated and underappreciated. I mean, we could use one of the extremes of Willow or Simba being, you know, good ones, large breed dogs that were aggressive. And on the flip end, the first few days with, you know, Simba, it was just sharing space, sitting next to him, you know, letting him know that he was safe with us, answering emails there, taking phone calls there, you know, while he was eating, just sitting there sharing space. And then it was 5-minute walks. Yep. It was literally, I mean, probably shorter, like to the end of the driveway, back in the crate multiple times a day, like every hour, just so he knew exactly what was going on throughout his day. Right. Because knowing what is happening in his day was comforting for him. Right. It's like, okay, I eat my food, they sit here and the humans answer emails. Interesting. Like, okay, well, the humans sit a little bit closer in the afternoon and then I go for A 5-minute walk. Interesting.
Right.
Like 2 p.m. We go to the mailbox, come back, I get fed.
Yeah.
So it starts to build some comfort there. And then Willow, the other extreme, being a very large dog, loved Steph off the bat, was very weary of me. Well, not right off the bat,
but she wasn't showing.
She allowed
teeth.
you to handle her. She was giving me teeth. Yeah.
She was showing Duke teeth. She wasn't giving me teeth. So I'm like, all right, well, I get to handle. She was 125 pounds.
Steph handled her. It was the first 2 or 3 days, I think. And I would literally just go outside while Steph had her on leash and sit there.
Yeah.
I didn't approach her. I didn't try and get her. And it was, day 2, she starts to get a little curious, but I would ignore her. She'd come sniff me. I'd just sit there.
Yeah.
I'd be on the couch inside when they walked in through the door. She'd come up and get in my face, and I would just look and let her do her thing. And then it was day 3 or 4, all of a sudden, I'm her best friend.
Yeah.
Because she understood, like, okay, you respected my space. You let me work through my shit.
Yeah.
Now I love you.
Yeah.
So sharing space, being patient is big.
Yeah. Now I remember I was in the kitchen that morning.
You were upset.
I made it about me. I was giving her medication because she had a prolapsed uterus and double cherry-eyed. So, even though she didn't like love me, she tolerated me. And I was like putting on medication back there and putting her eye drops in. And I was giving her doxycycline in like a pill pocket. And Duke comes into the kitchen. She turns around and I didn't have her leash on her, but I could tell that her body was super relaxed. And all of a sudden she just did this full body wiggle and went over to him and like play bowed. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I haven't gotten a play bow.
And I was
like,
her best friend from that
And I was like, excuse you, lady. I've been putting on medication on your private parts for the last 3 days. But she ended up being such a like funny.
Oh, and she's in such a funny home too with a Frenchie.
Yeah.
She's like a big 100-pound.
She's 130 now.
Yeah. Like a massive dog. And she's got this little Frenchie sister and they play like psychos. It's so great.
Adorable.
Last one. So this was actually from YouTube and it was a good one. I don't know if this lady's going to like our feedback, unfortunately, because it's a little tricky. It's a tough one. So she has a dog, and I'll summarize this, who's extremely leash reactive with her. She's been to see multiple trainers, and as soon as she hands the leash over, her dog is an angel, not reactive when other people are handling the leash. It's only when she is handling the leash.
I mean, the dog's resource guarding her.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's basic. But I'll say at least that's one of my least favorite things to fix because it does take potentially a very long time. And there's a few different ways I like to go about it. Yeah. I don't know if you want to start, but that is to summarize typically when we see stuff like that, because Helen will do that with Steph.
Yeah.
We had Hannah do that with Sonia. So, the timeline can be anywhere from like a month where it was fairly short with Steph, Helen, and I, or it could be like a 6-month process like it was with Hannah and Sonia.
Right.
So it is a tricky one to correct. But if you want to start on that, but yes, I would agree that your dog is resource guarding you. That's
like a really loaded question because we don't know.
I will say it's hard assessing. I hate giving training advice tele remotely like this. It's tough because a lot of dogs can be different. I'll say in our experience, typically, and this isn't a knock on you as an owner.
Yeah.
I want to emphasize that. But typically when you see stuff like this, the dog is lacking confidence in you as a handler. Again, that's not a knock on you. I don't know the full situation. Right. And things happen. Dogs go through hormonal changes. Trust me, like the first dog I ever had ended up having human aggression. And it was a lot of work. Yeah. And now she's the best dog ever.
But anyway. The dog basically is feeling like it needs to protect you from something because you are not protecting the dog from whatever, the situation that the dog feels.
Yes.
It needs protection from, if that makes sense. Sorry, that was very like roundabout.
Yeah, I mean, I would say number one, really hammer in basic obedience work and then implement that in those situations. So, some of the dogs we've had that have done resource guarding us while on leash and not others, it's getting them in those situations after we've hammered in basic obedience work. And then when we're going through those situations, giving them those commands to bring them back. So Tony, for instance, extremely leash reactive with other dogs. For him, it's bringing his eye contact back to us. So we had to really hammer in the command, look at me. And as we started to get in those situations where he started to lash out, we would catch it early, bring his eyes, his focus back to us.
Right.
And that was like that safety net of him being like, okay, I have a command here.
Right.
My person that's at the end of this leash, he's in control. She's in control. This is what we're doing. I feel better now.
Right.
I feel more in control. With Thea, it was a different one where it was really hammering in the place command.
Yeah.
So for her, it was new people entering the home around me. So we had to lock the place command. Place, wait command were massive. And because she had that routine of dad says, we're doing place, we're doing wait when this person walks in. And then he calls me and we are allowed to approach together. I would give her the come, heel, go say hi command, come back. That routine, that structure, having training in place to combat that problem gave her the confidence she needed to get over that because she had a job during that time.
Yeah.
So I think that can go a really long way.
I also think having maybe a few people that you can really trust to work with you and your dog, right? Because if it's happening only when you're holding the leash, clearly the dog is resource guarding you. So you need to have a few people that you can trust so that your dog can have some positive interactions with other people around you. And that's going to take time.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's like a one-time fix-all type of solution for a dog that's resource guarding a human or resource guarding anything for that matter. But having a few people in your corner that can help you work through it and be patient so the dog can have multiple positive interactions.
Yep.
And one of the biggest things, like Duke was saying, is catching the dog before it escalates.
Yes.
And either having like a recall command or a positive interaction before. I know there's so many different schools of thought when correcting a dog that's resource guarding a human. People are like, well, if you start, calling it off and giving it a treat, it's just going to associate giving, a positive interaction with reacting that way. And that's,
we might defer on this. I would say, because she actually brought this up because she's doing field trips and she said, is it okay to comfort her dog during those interactions on the field trip?
Personally, I think not.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that leads in. You don't want to necessarily comfort your dog when they're stressed out because you're reaffirming that they should, in fact, be stressed out of the situation. I would say, though, to your point, if you're redirecting your dog or giving them treats, during these controlled situations, you have to do it. Timing is everything. You have to do it when they haven't acted up. If your dog is losing at the end of a leash and barking and growling, and then you're recalling and giving a treat, I would not do that.
Yeah.
You're trying to beat that behavior. So,
Not literally.
Huh?
He said beat that behavior.
Yeah. Beat the behavior. Whatever. You're a clown. Well, we see it a lot. People, when you're walking your reactive dog, some people do clicker training or treats to keep the dog's focus.
Yeah.
And that's okay because the dog hasn't displayed that behavior yet. They're using the high value item, the treat, whatever it may be, to direct the dog's attention elsewhere. I don't mind that. It's just, you have to be very careful with timing because if you're rewarding your dog, comforting your dog when they're already in that heightened state, they're already freaking out, then in my opinion, you're reinforcing to them that, yes, that was a good job, or yes, you should be scared right now. You should be freaked out right now.
Okay.
No different than we talk about the drive-bys with dogs that resource guard behind barriers or in crates, like with Anakin. He was resource guarding in his crate. That was a big one, outside but inside too. And to start with him, it was while he had a bully stick or food down, we would approach. And, he would lose it when we were 3 feet away. So at 3.5 feet away, before he would lose it, we would toss a piece of chicken in the crate, walk away. And then the next day, all of a sudden, he's losing it at 2 feet away. So we're closer. So at 2.5 feet, we were tossing a treat. And so we're building a positive association, like you were saying, but we're doing it while his behavior is in check. If he gave us teeth, he's not getting that piece of chicken. We're walking away, resetting. We're not overcorrecting him. It's just a reset.
Right.
So timing is big.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
So those are the biggest ones.
But you're doing the work. So that's all.
You're doing the work. You're doing a good job.
Stick with it.
Just consistency is going to be big. And like I said, it could be something that, a light bulb goes off and you have it corrected, fixed in a month, or it might take 6 months. Just resource guarding humans can be tricky. I will say it's better than resource guarding the home. So if that's a silver lining, something, but good luck. But I think that's it for today.
Okay.
For Topic Q&A episode 3.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one.
Thought so.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget, like, share, comment, subscribe, thumbs up right now before you leave. Okay.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Okay. Later, guys.
Bye.